This video is to create a local SQL Server database on your computer in your SQL Server Management Studio in order for us to be able to continue our class while the network systems are put back online. We're not sure exactly when that's going to happen. So instead of using ITD2, we're going to be using a local database. So the topics for this is we're going to create a local SQL Server database. We're going to add a new login. We're going to update the web.config. We're going to test the connection to this new database through Visual Studio. Okay, so let's first open up your SQL Server Management Studio. You'll need the SQL Server database engine installed in order to be able to create this database and have the database run on your local computer. So if you haven't done that, you'll need to go and do that first and then come back to this recording. So I've got SQL Server Management Studio up. I believe this is 2015 or 18. You can use 2012 all the way up to whatever the most current version is. It won't change much with the steps we're going to do here. So first thing is you're going to connect to your database. So click Connect, Database Engine, and pick this local database. I've got other databases here in my list, but I want my local computer database. And you want to use Windows authentication. So my local computer name is CS4403. Yours will be the computer name that you've given it. Click Connect. Okay, in Databases, right click, New Database. We're going to name it Web2 and the database name. You can leave the rest the same. Click OK. So now we have a Web2 database here. Scroll down and inside security. Now, not inside security under Web2 because it has a security folder too. We want to be outside of the databases folder. So we want to be at this level, open security, open logins, and we're going to create a new login. Right click on the logins folder, click new login. Name this login Web2 user. We're going to use SQL Server authentication. Because this is a local database, the password is not as important as it would be normally. So we're just going to make the name of this password with the number 1, PASSWORD number 1, and then just retype that again in the confirm password, PASSWORD the number 1. You can name these whatever you want. Just make sure you remember what it is because we're going to use that and put that password inside our web config. Turn off all 3 of these checkboxes. If you turn the first one off, all 3 of them should be turned off as well. Go to User Mappings. Scroll down to your Web2 database and check that. In the database role membership for Web2, make sure you have DB Data Reader, DB Data Writer, and DB Owner and Public checked. And click OK. Okay, so now we're going to update the Visual Studio project to connect to this database instead of the ITD2 database. So bring up your Visual Studio project and the web config. Open that up. We're going to change this item, the AppDB Connect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this existing one by highlighting it in Control-C and Control-V to paste. We're going to name this one, not that, old. And then now we still got this one here. So this will still contain the ITD2 database, but we're not using it because we're going to leave it in our web config, but I'm going to give it this name just so it's still there. So the new database name, this database source, if you go back to your SQL Server, that's this name here. Mine is CS4403. Now you don't need to do the space parentheses SQL Server, any of that stuff. just the SQL Server name, and mine is CS4403. So that's what goes in the database name, CS4403. Mine happens to be capitalized, but that should not matter. The initial catalog, this is the database name. This is the database name itself, Web2. That login that we created, and if you remember, it was Web2 user. So we're going to put that here, Web2 user. And then the password, in my case, I put in password, Password, the number 1. Okay, so we added we copied a whole new line of code here in the web config. Left the old one there, but I renamed it by just doing that. You can do this as well. It doesn't matter what you put in there. You can do that if you'd like. So this one is the same name. Here is the database server name, and in my case, CS4403. That's right here. The initial catalog is Web2. That's the database name itself, right? That is here, Web2. The user is that new login we made, Web2 user. And that is down here, Web2 user. And then that's the password I gave to that new user. All right, so now we're going to set a breakpoint. Open up inside the Solution Explorer, open up the Models folder, and open up database.cs. You can find any of these methods should have a getDB connection method call inside it. Put your cursor on it and right click, go to definition, scroll down a little bit. We're going to set a breakpoint on this SQL con connection string line. So that's what it looks like beforehand. We put a breakpoint right on that line. We're going to break and see that our new database connection is successfully occurring. And this, if it's not, then this will either fail or show that it's not open. So go ahead and run your project. And I'm just going to attempt to log into the database. That makes a SQL connection, so it doesn't really matter what I put in there. Okay, so I hit the button, whatever that button was. Yep, sign in. And my breakpoint's now set. So if I step over once, I'm going to see that this SQL con connection string is set to what's in my web config. So you'll see there it's CS4403, initial catalog, Web2, user ID is Web2 user, password is password1. That's what is in this. Right? So we grab that variable and we put it into the SQL con object as a connection string property. And now we're going to step over this and try to make that connection. Now, if it jumps to this bracket, that means it did not fail. So what you need to you want to be sure is that that connection string's state property is open, like it is here. So basically, I just hovered over SQL con, clicked the caret, scroll down a little bit, and went to state, and I verified that it's open. So it made a connection to my new database.